Good morning, New York, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving right into, well, you know how sometimes we get these stories and we're like, oh, this could be really big, and then it kind of just fades away.
Yeah.
Well, this one I don't think is going to fade away. This is about the Indian judicial system, and, you sent me all this stuff, a bunch of news reports and analyses.
A lot of material. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like reading a thriller, to be honest.
It's a very perplexing situation that is unfolded.
Yeah.
And it raises some serious questions about transparency and accountability.
Yeah. So, okay, we need to unpack this because at the heart of it, it's a fire, right? March 2025 at the residence of Delhi High Court Judge Yashwant Verma.
Right.
Sounds simple enough, right?
Yeah.
But this is where it gets really interesting because the fire brigade, they put out the fire, but initial reports suggest that they found something pretty shocking.
Yes. According to the information you shared, the fire brigade, they found bundles of burnt currency at Judge Verma's residence on the night of March 14th. And they even, reportedly, made a video recording of it. The initial call to the Delhi Police Control Room, by the way, was placed at 11:43 p.m. So we have a pretty clear timeline here.
So we know it happened. But then the very next day, things take a very sharp turn because the Delhi Fire Service chief, Atul Garg, he issues a statement saying, no notes were found at the scene.
A direct contradiction.
Yeah, it sets off alarm bells, right?
Immediately. And the discrepancies, unfortunately, don't end there.
Oh, no.
Because on the morning of March 15th, so the day after the fire, burnt notes and other materials were allegedly removed from the judge's residence.
Okay, hold on. So they said they didn't find any, but then stuff was removed.
Exactly. And what's even more concerning is the reports indicate a complete absence of any standard legal procedures during this removal. There was no patchnama, no seizure report.
Like what?
It seems like there's no official record of this removal.
So if those items were indeed removed and there's no documentation, what does that suggest?
Right. It's a huge question mark.
Yeah, and here's another layer. This whole thing, nobody knew about it for 6 days.
Yes. The public was kept in the dark for a full 6 days.
Why the delay? Was there an attempt to just keep this quiet, sweep it under the rug?
It's a crucial point because that lack of immediate public disclosure, well, it inevitably leads to speculation.
Yeah.
Was it just an oversight or was there a deliberate effort to control the information? These are the kinds of questions that really erode public trust.
Of course. So then enter the Supreme Court.
Yes, thankfully.
They step in and they form a special 3-judge committee to investigate this whole thing. That's a big deal, right?
Absolutely. It signals how seriously they're viewing these allegations. This committee, by the way, comprises some very senior judges, the Chief Justices of Punjab Haryana High Court and Himachal Pradesh High Court, and a judge from the Karnataka High Court.
Okay. So they're taking it seriously. What's their plan?
Well, based on your sources, their mandate is pretty broad. They're going to conduct a forensic investigation, examine mobile and WhatsApp data, and record witness statements.
Makes sense. We also learned that the Delhi High Court Chief Justice, he's not messing around. He requested 6 months of call records for Justice Verma and his staff.
From the police commissioner.
Yeah. So it seems like they're trying to figure out what happened, but something's missing here, right?
There is a rather glaring omission. The Delhi police, who were initially involved, and central agencies like the Enforcement Directorate, the ED, and the Income Tax Department, they're not part of this special committee.
So the police who are the first responders, they're not part of this Supreme Court investigation.
That's quite unusual.
Yeah, and you would think that, with the ED and the Income Tax Department, they deal with financial crimes, money laundering, tax evasion, burnt currency, all that stuff, right?
Exactly. And that's what's so perplexing about their exclusion. Their expertise seems crucial to a thorough investigation, especially given the whole burnt currency issue. It does make you wonder if the committee will have the necessary tools to fully uncover any potential financial irregularities.
That's a good point. This whole situation brings up some really serious legal and ethical dilemmas. We read that a senior Supreme Court lawyer is actually calling for an FIR, a first information report, to be filed against Judge Verma. That's a big step.
It is, and it really highlights that central conflict. Judicial independence versus judicial accountability.
Right, because on the one hand, we need to protect judges so they can do their jobs fairly, without fear.
Absolutely. They need to be free from undue influence or pressure.
But on the other hand, nobody should be above the law.
Precisely. And that includes judges. The principle of accountability is paramount.
It's tricky. So what do you think? Should Judge Verma, If these allegations are true, should he face the same scrutiny as anyone else, or does his position as a high court judge give him special treatment?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it? The ideal scenario is that justice is applied equally to everyone, regardless of their position or power. However, we also have to acknowledge that the judiciary plays a unique role in a democracy.
Right, it's complicated.
It is. This case really throws a spotlight on that tension between ensuring judicial independence and making sure that there's accountability. It's a delicate balance. We want a system where judges can make decisions impartially, but also where there are mechanisms to address potential misconduct.
For sure. And look, we can't ignore the fact that there are just so many unanswered questions.
Well, absolutely.
Was the removal of the burnt notes even legal? Shouldn't the scene have been secured, to protect any potential evidence?
Absolutely. Tampering with a potential crime scene is a serious matter. Usually there's a very strict protocol for handling potential evidence. It involves preserving the crime scene, documenting everything meticulously, and creating a panchnama.
Yeah, that formal record with the witnesses.
Exactly. And a seizure report documenting the chain of custody for any evidence taken from the scene. The fact that none of this seems to have happened is very concerning.
Yeah. And then we have those conflicting statements from the fire department. How do you explain that? Why would there be such a big difference between the initial report and the denial by the chief?
It's a troubling discrepancy. It raises the question of whether there was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, or worse, a deliberate attempt to mislead. Getting to the bottom of that is crucial to understanding what really happened.
Right. And what about that 6-day delay in this whole thing becoming public? I mean, what's the explanation for that?
The lack of transparency is concerning. It could be a result of bureaucratic delays, or it could be a deliberate attempt to control the narrative. Whatever the reason, it creates an information vacuum. And as we know, speculation thrives in a vacuum.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole question of whether this is a bigger conspiracy.
Right. Could Judge Verma be trying to hide something more significant? Or is this a case of personal entanglement gone wrong?
The source material even suggests that this case is an Agni Pariksha for the Indian judiciary, a trial by fire. I think that's a pretty accurate description.
It's a powerful analogy. This isn't just about one judge. It's about the integrity and the reputation of the entire judicial system. How this case is handled and what the Supreme Court Committee concludes will have a ripple effect. It will affect public trust and confidence in the judiciary.
Absolutely. The findings will have a huge impact on Judge Verma's future, but it also sets a precedent for how the judiciary deals with allegations of misconduct against its members.
It's a critical moment. The judiciary needs to demonstrate its commitment to both independence and accountability.
Okay, so as you said, this is a developing story, and we'll definitely be keeping our eyes on it. But before we wrap up, if you're as captivated by this deep dive into the Indian judicial system as we are, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analyses just like this.
We appreciate your support.
Yes, and let us know in the comments what you think about this whole situation. What stands out to you?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
So, to recap, today, we've looked at the fire at Judge Verma's residence, the conflicting reports about the burnt currency, and the questions surrounding the removal of evidence.
We discussed the discrepancies in the statements, the lack of transparency, and the Supreme Court's decision to launch an investigation.
And we talked about that tension between judicial independence and accountability.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah. And ultimately, as our source pointed out, this case is a real test for the Indian judiciary.
The committee's findings will have a significant impact on judicial accountability going forward.
One last thought for you. The current inquiry has a limited scope, right? Certain investigative agencies have been excluded. So what other factors, what other perspectives might be important to fully uncover the truth? What else is there that we might be missing?
It's a question worth pondering.
It is. Thanks for joining us.